Hey, Connor, thanks for coming on Social Dream Machine. This is a podcast dedicated to making your first dollar online. So you look like a perfect candidate to come on the show and talk to us about this. Tell me about your journey. I see here on your banner, you don't have to quit your job to be an entrepreneur. I like that. I think it's all about side hustles these days.
So I've been a chronic side hustler for as long as I can remember. Probably coming on like 7 or 8 years now. Most of them were offline, to be honest. So I first started off, did some like fitness coaching. I did some tutoring in college, and just had some like, those were like two of my most successful ones before I ventured online. But I also did some like, some of them were gimmicky stuff, like DoorDash driving. I tried like eBay shipping or eBay flipping and like drop shipping. Those were disasters.
Feel ya.
So I kind of got away from those pretty quickly, and kind of went back to some of the stuff that like I owned. And then so after I graduated from school, I needed a job, right? Got kind of bounced around a bunch. For like basically from the time I was like 14 to 20, I just wanted to be a surgeon and kind of just went that path, dedicated everything I had to it. And then as I was shadowing in hospitals and stuff, like looking at med schools, just realized I didn't want to go down that route. So pivoted a couple times within the medical field to like dentistry, physical therapy. I was a personal trainer at the time, so then I thought strength coaching, and ultimately just ended up scrapping that all and went to kind of like the finance route. And started kind of like interviewing at big banks and stuff, and just looked at people, like really far ahead of me, 10, 20 years. And I was like, I don't want that life. This work doesn't like excite me. I'm not about that. So I pivoted and was like, all right, what can I do? I've kind of chosen these two really stable things. I've done everything like right my whole life. I was a good student, top athlete, etc. So I chose something about as far away from stable as you could get, and got a job at a tech startup in the cannabis industry. So super volatile, and I loved it for like a year. It was awesome. And we went through a restructure about 11 months in for me. I got pushed out of my role. I was in finance operations, got pushed out to sales. Company just got restructured, and that's when I realized I was like, all right, I don't love this. I kind of need to start doing something on my own. And like I had that background, I was still training on the side, but I was like, around that time too, I started getting into like the creator economy and online business a little bit. Two people, I was following Dan Coe heavily at the time, and then also Cody Sanchez. And I remember like joining Cody Sanchez's newsletter and got like a PDF of like weird ways to make money. And I was like, cool, I'm a side hustler. Like this will be great. And she had one of the first things she suggested was like a guide. So I was like, oh, sweet. And her guide happened to be just about investing in cannabis or like getting involved in the cannabis industry. And I was like, oh, sweet. Like I just did this, a year and a half ago. I could totally figure this out. So I got to work, built out like 105-page document, just massive. Threw it up on Gumroad, and I was like, all right, sweet. I'm going to start just making some passive income. And that flopped. Didn't make a single sale with it. But that was kind of like the first time I realized the power of like productized knowledge. Because I was posting a little bit about it on LinkedIn and just was getting a ton of like positive response and a ton of like influx. People were reaching out. So I was never able to sell that course, but that's when I spun it a little bit into what I now recognize as like a micro offer, and just put together like a quick coaching program from it. And then that ended up being kind of the first way that I made my first dollar online. I mean, that was after probably 5 years of, making money on the side offline, but that was kind of the first experience. And then from there, just iterated a couple more times into some of the stuff that I'm doing now.
Did you have any like imposter syndrome going through this? And then at first, like naming, for example, like I'm pretty green at like getting my first few clients on launching like podcasts. And I had a client last night and I quoted like $150 an hour, and it was up from like working from free, and then $100 an hour, and then $150. And obviously I think as time goes on, your probably rates go up with that. And like, obviously I think of one-on-one being more expensive than like one-to-many type of situation. So I'm just curious your thoughts on that. Like I definitely have had some untangling to do about my thoughts of like money and like what that means to me, and thinking about things in terms of like transformations versus just transactional type of thing. Any thoughts on that?
I've bounced back and forth on this quite a few times. Especially so like for all my offline side hustles, excuse me, I started working for free in the beginning for every single one of them. So my first fitness coaching clients were free. It was like friends. My first tutoring clients were free. And then slowly just, worked my way up to tutoring was like $50 an hour. Training was like $100 an hour. Nothing crazy. But yeah, over time, just slowly worked my way up. And then when I got into the online space, so at this point, I've done probably like 2 or 3 different coaching offers and then some freelancing as well. Initially, I was like, all right, I'm going to offer stuff for free. That's what I know. That's what I've done. It's worked in the past. Let me try that. And I've moved away from it now because I feel like every person that I've ever done for free, whatever it was, is either a pain to work with if it was like a done for you service like freelancing or ghostwriting, or if it's coaching, the results just were subpar because they just didn't have any like skin in the game. So I have shifted now to still very cheap, but without having the social proof and everything, to a very just like reduced rate with a strong guarantee. So for that, it would be like, instead of, $100 an hour is fine, but it could also be, something like $50 an hour and 100% money back guarantee for whatever reason. If you're building out like a longer program, let's say it's like I'm really big on micro offers now because that's what's been super helpful for me for some of these different programs and stuff. So it's like, all right, let's do 4 weeks of coaching. You're also gonna have access to me via like a messaging app. I'll give you exercises and some templates as well. Let's do like, $100 a week, super easy to get started. $100 now, $100 a week. You can cancel anytime. And there's 100% money back guarantee for whatever reason. Like if you're not happy, you can have your money back. And I find that's been useful. And then as opposed to like, yes, you raise your rates as you go, but then also you kind of reduce the guarantee a little bit as you have more social proof and more clients.
Yeah, it makes sense. I guess you're reducing the risk essentially for the person that's taking the offer, which makes a lot of sense. What are you using to like invoice and for like your process, out of curiosity, for like actually making that happen?
Stripe, and then I tried PayPal. Stripe's got a little more customization. I feel like also helps with like, I just wanted to have everything there so that in the future, if I ever decide to like put a course up, or I'm definitely a far off ways from that, but I figured it was just good to build that base in Stripe because it's super easy to embed it into like websites and stuff. So that's kind of what I've run with.
So tell me a little bit about these like micro education courses that you're talking about, and what would you recommend like someone reach out to you on working on with you with in general? And like, yeah, could you just give us the 411 on that?
I don't do much course creation just because I've never done it myself, so I don't like feel comfortable teaching it. But also I feel like as a product, a course is hard to deliver and make money from. When you start to look at kind of like conversion rates and stuff, you need a decent sized following to make like a sustainable income from it. And that's my kind of target audience. And my big thing is like, especially if you're building on the side or you're a new creator or anything like that, you want revenue right away. So whatever that's going to be to help get money in is kind of what I want to build. So with that micro education businesses, the thought behind that is like, you're going to turn the knowledge and experience you already have into profit in some capacity. And like I said, that was kind of born out of doing like the fitness coaching, the tutoring, the job search coaching, just all stuff I did for myself. I was good at and kind of had a system, broke down whatever my system was, and then started putting people through that system as well. Got some tweaks because obviously the system that worked for me 100% work for other people. So got the tweaks, got the feedback, and then was able to like build a better system that worked for like the masses as opposed to just myself. So that's kind of the thought behind the microeducation business. And I truthfully think anybody pretty much at any level can do it. It's just about like who you can serve. Like personally, like I'm not going to be able to serve somebody who's doing 20K a month. Like they're eons ahead of me. I can't help them scale, but somebody who's just getting started and wants to make their first couple thousand per month, it's like I've done that a few times. And I've got at this point some systems in place to help them. And so I think it's really about in the beginning kind of overcoming that imposter syndrome, but realizing too that you have knowledge and experience that is valuable to other people, even if it doesn't seem like it. There's always people you can find to start helping. And I think that's a lot of what I focus on is like, you don't have to be at the upper echelon to actually start doing things you're passionate about and like helping other people.
Yeah, I think that Justin Welsh calls it like knowledge blindness. And I agree with it. I feel like sometimes like when you want to productize yourself, you just sort of feel like you're like, I don't know, it just feels odd, I guess. I think it's like almost becoming like when you create a new identity, you almost have to kill your old identity to some sort of degree, like that person that was like the person that's not a business person, I guess. So I kind of think about it like that as well. And then also just like being like masculine energy versus like feminine energy. Like if I'm going to go like do like a, I don't know, like a demo or do like a live event or whatever it might be, like I'm going to definitely want to have more of like just like a solid kind of thump or a bait or just something that's just more like a metronome, like stable energy, if you will. And then like I feel like feminine energy, like went to a workshop the other day and they were talking about it being like more like flowing like water. And you kind of need to have both to some sort of degree. I feel like you need to flow, but you also need to have like structure to your thing. So that's kind of one way that I've kind of reframed it in my head. And then even just saying like the number out loud and just like not being like okay with like whatever it is that you're saying. Oh, it's like $250 an hour and just like saying it till it feels normal. I don't know if you've done anything like that or if it just comes from the feedback loops from doing the projects and having people that are happy potentially.
Yeah. So this is actually where my first like sales job really came in handy. I had my first sales mentor. He like we were doing like mock cold calls and stuff, just practice typical sales training stuff. And he made me just take a post-it note and literally just like stick it on my laptop that said breathe, just to slow down, kind of shut up. So for me, that was probably one of the most helpful like sales lessons I've had is just like, charge what you're worth, but in any conversation, even if it's not asking for like the close or the sale, just breathe, slow down, kind of let the silence do the work, and let the other person on the end do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. And like I said, I did have some experience with sales already from like a younger age doing some of those side hustles. And again, they weren't anything crazy. It wasn't like I was selling $3,000 products, but I think having those experiences and generating money for myself offline first, and then spending like 2 years in sales and getting practice selling like software for other people definitely had an advantage when I started doing like some of my own stuff online. But yeah, I think just too over time, like you get more confident in charging what you're worth and just saying your number, shutting up and kind of believing in the value and the transformation that you're going to provide.
I like that a lot. What about content? Do you find that any content like on LinkedIn is better for like getting leads? I know that like some people look at content and like this is like more growth content, like it's not really meant for like leads. It's more like kind of like a trend or whatever. And this is like something a breakdown of something like specific, like on how to podcast, for example. Like, do you find that like certain content is better for leads? Because I'm also trying to figure that out as well.
I see social media more as like a prerequisite for playing the game more than anything else, and for like having the impact I want to have. And I think it's a super powerful tool, but at the same time, like if it wasn't necessary, and not that it is necessary, but for like what I want to do and get into, I think it is, I wouldn't have it. So I'm not really the person to, I always tell my clients this is like, I'm not going to help you get famous and like grow by a bunch of followers and stuff. Like, I don't care at all about that. I really just want to have like a lean, profitable business that I can do and talk about what I like and help people do the same. So I think it goes back to some bigger names, J.K. Molina, like Taki Moore. They have the whole like philosophy that likes ain't cash, right? And I've definitely subscribed heavily to that belief of like, I really, I'll post some growth content and stuff because obviously it's a really powerful leverage builder to have your personal brand and have a ton of people, you know, seeing your stuff. But like, if we're just going to look at the math, right? If you had 500 impressions per day on a post and you do that for 6 weeks or 6 months straight, it's 91,000 sets of eyeballs on your content. And again, it's going to depend what you're selling, what your offer is, etc. But if you can convert 10 of those people into customers and 2 or 3 of them into clients, again, it will depend on what your high ticket service is, etc. But like, that can put you at a pretty sustainable like revenue source and a pretty damn good income from 12 people out of 91,000 that saw your stuff. So it's like, you don't need tens of thousands of people really. If you got a small audience, I think it's more important to speak directly to them. So maybe I guess the answer would be like, I probably sell a little bit more in my content than try to do anything else.
How do you really get into the heads of these people that you really know that you're speaking? Are you trying to, like, when you're writing content, are you specifically thinking like about an entrepreneur or like a creative entrepreneur or like a SaaS founder, or like when you're writing like a post, are you specifically targeting just like one like demographic, or are you kind of going after multiple angles?
One person, one problem, one solution. Like, that is it. And I try to, as opposed to like trying to solve a bunch of different things, I want to solve one problem with one solution targeted to one person and just attack that from 50 different ways. So that's how I get the variety in my content. But then that's also how I structure most of my like products and coaching and stuff, is like, I just want to get really good at doing one thing for one person one way. And again, I don't really help people scale because I haven't done it myself past, again, like 3,000-4,000 a month. The focus is getting people to that first couple of thousand and getting their initial offer, their initial sales systems off the ground. When I get to a higher revenue number, I have more insight. Maybe it isn't important to talk to a couple more people, but just everything I've done from the start, no matter what business it was, online, offline, was always, I was doing one thing for one person. So that's just kind of what I choose to focus on.
How did you do it like the first time to get to like a couple K out of curiosity? And I'm sure that you've done it with a couple other people. You have any stories there?
Yeah. So the first was training. And that was literally just like, I had probably half a dozen to a dozen clients. And that was a mix of, I guess that was kind of online. Like, I was doing a little bit of online training, but I didn't get any of my clients from online. So it was a little different. So that was a mix of in-person and online. That was, until I started freelancing, probably like the best I did. I think it was probably normally around anywhere from 1 to 3K per month. And I think my best month ever was like 4K. So that was the first thing. Tutoring wasn't crazy. That was more so like, man, I had time to kill in college and I was a good student. So like, was able to make like, 1,000 extra bucks per month. Nothing crazy. And then job search coaching, I only did that for a little bit because I didn't like it. But I had like three customers. Again, that was probably like 1,500 a month. And then switched to freelancing, which is a little bit higher ticket, which is kind of what helped me quit my job. So that was like, this is the best I've ever done on my own, was with freelancing. And now a couple of their coaching clients and like helping them get their thing started, get their own online biz going. So yeah, where I am now is probably the best I've ever done.
Well, yeah, I think it's awesome that you were able to have all that experience to go from all those different kind of experiences to actually getting to quit your job where you're at now. It sounds like you're like in a super good place. I feel like some of the hardest parts is just getting like that mindset of like your business hat on for some sort of reason. Do you feel like you become that person in time, or like, do you feel like, how did you become like, I guess where you're at right now, like mentally, like, is there anything that you subscribe to, like stoicism, or just like obviously you said breathe earlier, so like, I don't know, mindfulness? Is there anything that you've done kind of just keep yourself sane too, like going through all this transformation?
I love Stoic philosophy. I think that's a big one and something I try to do my best to subscribe to. I'm not great at it, but growing up, I still do have a ton of anxiety and stuff, and therapy helped with that. Stoicism helped with that. Exercise for me is probably my biggest outlet, and that's still my biggest passion. Like long term, big picture plans. Like I want to somehow find a way to mend together like wellness and entrepreneurship in some capacity. But I think the biggest thing in terms of mindset and like transformation was just working with a coach who's, 4 years into a mindset coaching business and has gone through the ringer of both being an entrepreneur, but then also has the systems to like equip you mentally with how to deal with the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs, and all that good stuff. I definitely wouldn't have, I probably would have stopped without him, to be honest. Like I probably would have thrown in the towel 4 or 5 separate different times. So I think that was probably the most important thing for me.
Yeah, it's total pain in the ass. Last couple of minutes here. What do you have any favorite books that you go to? Like Influence is like one of my favorite books by Robert Cialdini, just because I feel like if you could persuade people like from a psychological standpoint through, I don't know, like the law of reciprocation, for example, is one that I really like. But in general, do you have any books like that you enjoy?
I mean, bar none, probably the most influential book that has changed the way I look at business as a whole is Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. Like later, if I'm ever recommending one singular book to somebody to have the biggest possible impact, it would be that. And that's a large part of where I got most of my philosophy that I have now from. Is just like, I mean, the book is, if you don't know anything about it, is literally just about being an expert at one thing and like building a tribe of people and helping them along on their journey and like getting them from point A to point B. I think $100 million offers and leads by Hermosi was like good for business.
I was listening at that the other night.
Yeah, he's awesome. That definitely helped me craft offers, but a lot less philosophical and more like just hard, practical, like great advice. And then truthfully anything from like Dan Coe. His new book was super transformational in terms of like, I just love the way he builds together philosophy, spirituality, and business. So I think those 3 books would probably have had the biggest impact on me.
Agreed. I was listening to Dan's book too on the art of focus. He's so deep the way he thinks. It's crazy, like the layers of wisdom he has for such a young guy.
Insane. Absolutely. Sometimes I'm reading his stuff and I'm like, God damn, how the heck did he string all that together and make it make sense?
100%. Well, where do we send people, Connor, to learn more about you?
Yeah, you could just send them to my website. So that would be theconnorcook.com. Get my newsletter and stuff. That would be probably the biggest thing. That's where I go deepest, get most personable. So yeah, that's what I would send people.
Thanks, man. That was fun.